Well, welcome to episode 17. I have some beautiful and powerful poetry to share with you today. Poetry that's been written and recorded by my friend Dale Fredrickson, and it's great stuff. But before we get into that, I just wanted to take a minute and say if you are a regular listener, you probably realize that this episode is a week late in getting released. And that is because I've just undergone the process of moving my family clear across the country. We did a 1,500-mile haul from Denver, Colorado, and now I'm sitting here in beautiful western North Carolina with the Blue Ridge Mountains right outside the window rather than the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. And it has been a trip getting out here, both literally and metaphorically, I guess. But we are here, somewhat settled, and you know what? At least I have internet set up now so I can release this new episode. So apologies for the delay, but I am super glad that I'm getting to share this episode with you now. I've just been so excited to release this second part of my conversation with Dale over the past few weeks. So let's go ahead and get into the official episode right now. Welcome to the Grounded Presence Podcast, a place for exploring authentic identity, deep community, and an ever-evolving spiritual journey. I'm your host, Daniel Powell, and this week is a continuation of my conversation with Dale Fredrickson. Now, if you missed the first part of our conversation on episode 16, that's not a problem. This episode can stand alone on its own, though I do think you should go back and listen to episode 16 because we just had such a great conversation. And I want to share that one with you. But today, what I'm sharing with you is Dale's poetry. Now, I'll just give you a brief recap if you did miss the last episode. Dale is a spoken word poet who is a pastor. And those terms don't really seem to sit too well together. In my mind, it just seems like there's a lot of dissonance. You know, the poet is the one who wants to have the experiences, and then the pastor, typically in our culture at least, seems to be the one who wants to categorize and define and label the mechanics of the experience rather than just surrendering to it. But Dale's a special guy, and he's a special pastor for that matter, because he's not the kind of pastor that wants to define experiences for you and put parameters on things. He's much more interested in inviting you deeper into the human experience. And that just fills me with so much joy and hope. And maybe a better term than pastor for Dale would be a teaching poet. I don't know if he would agree with me on that, but it just seems a lot more fitting because he's inviting you into something rather than explaining it or defining it for you. He's creating an experience. He's displaying an experience and creating space that you can join him in that deeply human place. So I think Dale's poetry is really something special, and I am so excited to get to share that with you today. So without any further ado, here is the poetry of Dale Fredrickson, and me and him having some conversations around it. Enjoy. So let's get into some poetry.
All right, I would love
Unless
that.
you got any last thoughts
No,
on
that sounds amazing.
So I'm just going to insert this little Peter Rollins comment that I've written down
Ooh, I
here.
love it.
This is how I'm going to kind of sum up your poetry versus other poetry. Once more, I'm just going to fanboy out a little bit here. You know, he's describing abstract art, and he says, it's not that you get it, it's that it gets at you. It's that it gets you, you know? And it's like,
good.
that's what art's meant to do.
That's really good.
It's supposed to have all these hooks to just like pull at you instead of needing to understand like the brush technique.
Yeah, right. No, that's good.
So that's what your art does,
that's
man.
good.
And I'm excited to share it with everybody listening to this right now.
All right,
so
man. All right.
let's get some tracks going.
All right. So you're just gonna share from the album itself and and then we'll talk about it. That's how
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna-
got
okay.
these 3 tracks that are what I'm titling my holy trinity of your poetry.
Oh my
and
goodness.
So
Oh
I
my
liked them.
goodness.
I loved them from the CD, but I picked up the book here. Interestingly enough, how many poems are in this book? Let's see. What? Probably like
25.
25. Okay.
Yeah.
So I picked it up, and these 3 poems are sandwiched one right after the other. So I'm like, oh, it is a holy trinity. It's like right there in the book, you know. Let's
Let's call them the big 3
the
instead
big
of the Holy
3.
Trinity.
Okay,
There you
okay. Maybe not be a sacrilegious. I guess you are a pastor. We got to keep some theological things intact. Okay, so I'm gonna share this first one, and just to let you know, I'm gonna need a little moment just to process it and let it sink in after it finishes. So there might be a little bit of silence after it. But this one is called "My Chest is a Forest Fire."
Anxiety woke me in the dark hours before morning. Raw wounds, buried fears, and dormant dreams are kindling within me. Sparks, smoking, snapping. Anxiety woke me in the dark hours before morning. Why must I carry this branding scar? Grief is just love that blisters on the inside. She sighed. Bursting pain is the beginning of healing. He consoled. Everything rising must go through the fires of resistance. She insisted. Anxiety woke me in the dark hours before morning. My chest a forest fire, burning, churning, smoldering. We are fired into life with the madness that comes from the gods. Plato won. I couldn't bear the anguish, so I double knotted my shoes and ran. I erupted with a dragon's fury as fresh air provoked my chest flame. Fumes of pain spewing into the air and within me rising again. Can anything ease this wild fire? I cried. I saw the shimmering stars, and my legs stopped pumping. In the mountain sky, the stars quieted me. Speckled across the dark horizon, stars sparkling. The flickering stillness pulled me close. Flying spheres of fire spoke to my aching. Aren't we all burning diamonds passing? I prayed. Distant stars and human hearts, not so different, are they? Thermodynamic, skyrocketing, then fading. In the dark hours before morning, I awoke. Through blazing constellations, could God be saying, planets are made by stars exploding. On the other side of a black hole is a universe expanding. Surrender to the mystery. You are becoming something new. Some fires can only be consumed.
Ooh, that's good. Oh, I haven't listened to that one in a while. that just does it to me, though.
So what stands out to you?
You know, there's only like one thing I can really say about it. Because I feel like talking about it does a disservice to it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, because so much of it is just an experience, you know?
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
dude, this is just so artful.
Thank you, man.
I've never really like rationally looked at this. This time I kept a little rationality, like Christmas light bulb on, right? And no, I just feel like the way you've laid this out, I love it, because you start out and it's kind of like simple descriptions, and then it gets like deeper and deeper and deeper. And by the time you get to the end and you're using these big words like thermodynamics, supernova, and then black holes birth an expanding universe. It's like, by the time you get there, I'm just so surrendered. I'm like, I don't even care what that means. It's beautiful. I don't need to know. You know, it's awesome. Like, I'm surrendered to the experience of this thing, and
that's great.
Yeah. So, it cuts so quickly for me to a place where I don't need to understand, because I'm experiencing.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that's great.
You know, that is what I like about it.
Thank you, man.
That is really all I have to
That's
say.
awesome. That's awesome.
Tell me about this poem. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, so this came through a season of my life where I literally could not sleep every night. So it was pretty dark in my life, and I had just like a number of things that were not working for me, and the pain and the betrayal I felt, and the kind of like inner turmoil of like caused me to like I couldn't sleep. I was just like always waking up, and I started like going on these long walks, and like in the middle of the night, like 2-3 a.m. And one time I just had like a lot of that angst, turmoil, and it was like just, I felt all the feels of like the situation I was going through. And I think we all go through those situations, those seasons where, whether it's your job or whether it's your like this relationship that you'd really hoped to wasn't working out, or a painful season where your body, your health is not compliant. Like, we all go through this like this anxiety, just like I raged like inside internally of like the opposite of peace, right? Like one of the nights when I had went on the walk, I was just like longing for like some relief, some release from this experience. And I literally looked up, and we were staying at a cabin at this night, and I saw the stars. And literally that's kind of where some of the lines came from, of distant stars and human hearts, not so different, brilliant than fading. And I was just thinking about the thermodynamics of a star and the thermodynamics of human life, and trying to like not go cliche, because all poets talk about stars, right, and rainbows and puppies. Not true, but I didn't want to be cliche. All bad poets do that. All good poets take you deeper inside it. And I thought about how their brilliancy of a star gives light for a season, and then literally shoots across the universe and is like expired, you know. And letting myself be okay that this season, this experience of my own, whether it was my own insecurities or the pain I experienced from this workplace I was in, or whatever that relationship was, letting myself die to that literally was the hardest thing. And so the poem, I wanted to really be that poem about death and new life, but in a way that was like, felt resonant with the human condition. And then so I thought about the universe expanding, and I thought about the act of surrender. And I'm really influenced by Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps to recovery. And that, like, you know, the serenity prayer for me is like super amazingly deep spirituality of the surrendering of who we are. And so that's kind of where I ended up of wanting to, and that's kind of like where it went. And I didn't want it to end pretty, but like to know that like your whole body, your whole life, even though it's painful and hard and horrific, is tied up into the solar system that is renewing itself and expanding and birthing new things, felt like a beautiful place to like put your contemplation, you know? So yeah, that's what I was after.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, man.
So I guess I'll just ask you two questions here.
Yeah.
One is what I was picking up on with the language. I'm just curious, was that intentional? Saving the big words until later, or did that just kind of happen with the way you do the craft?
That's a great question.
Because I've seen some poets use big words. And
Yeah.
it just wrecks. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't. So I am really trying to be more simplistic in my language. I'm like intentionally want to be a poet like Rumi, like Hafiz, like, because I love when words are simple but not simplistic. And I've been like really put off by like academic esoteric poetry because it feels like we're trying to be fancy instead of communicate. And I do think that poetry is a form of communication. And I can say, I mean, I think that poem's like 3 minutes. I can say more in 3 minutes than I can in 15 to 18 when I like discipline myself to let a form. So I'm really just letting the metaphor I started in the beginning follow through to the end. The end was the hardest part to write. I struggled and struggled, and I was just like, but letting my themes work themselves out. Stars, solar system, human hearts led me to just to think about and do some research on what black holes do, what the universe does. And so it was like that. It literally wasn't an intention. I never intend to use big words. I actually want to not use big words. I find it like, I mean, I dig poets that make me work sometimes, but I dig more when they've led me to that experience and it didn't matter. That the words weren't a barrier to me encountering a mood, a feeling. So I'm a feeling thinker, so I typically want to feel it deeply and then think it through to a form that can be conveyed to others. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It worked. That's
Thanks, man.
brilliantly. So the other thing I want to ask you about this is hearing your story behind it and bringing my own personal experiences to the table. I'm just like, if I'm writing anything like that and I'm in the season of life that Dale was in, I have to have a big cathartic experience for that to happen.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like I need to have a big blowout, you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe I need to like chop some wood, you know, or like break a chair or something, right? Like, anyways, that's just the things that release those type of energies for me when I'm so pent up. Was there like a cathartic experience for you that released this?
I mean, writing is that for me.
Okay.
Like I will write and rewrite and my words are searching. My words are searching for meaning. And I know a poem is good when there's that energy behind it that's like drawing tears out of me. Like when there's tears dripping on the page, that's when it's like ready, you know? And when it's not, it's like not ready. It's not something I care about enough to write. So I'm more interested in writing as the cathartic experience, writing as the practice of freedom, you know, trying to find some meaning out of this, you know, or to like intentionally to make yourself alive and to think through the meaning of this human life through the practice of writing poetry, writing whatever art form.
So let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask this for a friend.
Yeah.
So do you get a lot of exercise?
Yeah, I run a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's probably it for me.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
like why I need to go and
that's
like
good.
chop wood or something, right?
Yep.
Is because my body's calling for these big muscle movements.
Yep.
And so there's kind of like a physiological thing that needs to like occur, right? Like between mind and body. Like my muscles need exercise.
Right.
So my mind can like do more work. And
I
bring
think
everything
that's
to balance.
amazing.
Anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a healing thing for you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need more exercise.
But no, I mean, I definitely think that helps, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many runs I've been on where the like painful relationship, I feel myself. I mean, that's a powerful part. It's a powerful part of like meditation, breathing, like breathing it. And, you know, like most religious traditions besides American Christianity has believed in the energies that our bodies bring and bring out. And I mean, most of us talk about, oh, that person, they had a real strong energy. And we feel that, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, we also don't talk enough about how spiritual practices help us to, spiritual practices like writing, like breathing, like running, like anything that we do with our restlessness, help us to change the energy within us, you know? So it doesn't surprise me that you're running and feeling better about yourself. Not to mention the biochemicals in your body are changing.
I mean, that's my friend.
That's your friend. That's your friend.
My friend needs to run.
That's right. I forgot.
I think I forgot too. Cat's out of the bag.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it.
All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next poem?
No, man.
All right.
Let's do it.
So this next one's called White Apathy. And to be honest, when I saw the title of this one, I was a little skeptical. And I was like, are you just going to do like the straight social justice thing? But it was a very, very happy surprise. I'm going to let you hear for yourself. It tore me up.
The news flickers, colors clash. An officer pulls the trigger. Another black life lost. In a blur of pixels, in a whir of missteps, I watch, dry eye. The recurrence deafening. Under red skies, apathetic, I sleep. Why is this suffering, this misery of race, harrowing to face? Middle passage leg irons, the lash of a leather whip on flesh, curses on buses and restaurants, skeletons rattling, clamoring, battling from unnamed graves. Power and pigmentation, a story forged by lies, racial classifications. I'm deaf to the sorrows of difference. A mother cries and the earth rumbles. A father sighs and the sky thunders. Ancestry of violence. And I can't hear. Callousness traced through my family history. Murder and ignorance pulsing through my white skin. Could I hear and feel if I powered off my screens, became powerless, and listened?
Oh, so good. No, It's cathartic for me to say that that's good.
That's good, man. Tell me why for you.
So often when I see like these social justice things, it's just so external, like outside the self. You know, and it's just so like walled off and
That's
so
amazing you say
like
that.
categorized out, you know, us and them. And
Right.
I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of good in that. Your poem.
That's good.
You're just saying something right.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm totally like influenced by the spoken word, like, and you're right. Most of it is that. Most of it's the same cadence. Most of it's like one dimensional in that. And I wanted to, so this is my most spoken word, gonna raise a social justice issue and you know, give my voice on it. But I still tried to keep the first person, and the first person, like, really, like, and it came from a sincere place. Like, I can't tell you, at this season of life, I had seen so many officers shoot innocent young black men that I was like, I literally have to turn off the TV. And I like felt like, oh my gosh, I don't want to grow callous. I don't want to grow apathetic. That's not the type of man I want to be. And so I literally wrote this to like feel again. And like, I could feel that like shiver on my, you know, that shiver down my spine of like, that's right. Like, that feels right. Write this story of like whiteness and what it means to like, that we all as human hearts tend to be apathetic to the suffering and pain of others, especially when it's so systematic like that and big. And so I was like wanting to just tell that story. And that's kind of where that came from.
I just love that line. I watch dry-eyed, you know?
Thank you.
Because
Yeah.
that's about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Something's going on in here in me that's not right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like somebody got shot, you know, regardless of the circumstances. Like, why am I watching this and not crying, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
Thank
you. Thank you. The best story about this poem is the next track is the cries that we cannot hear, and I actually conceived it as one poem where I have a good friend named Lewis Brown who's like a rap hip hop artist in Denver named Proxy, and I wanted him to rap on this album, and I wanted it to be like my sort of like cathartic, and then him like kind of rapping about what every white person really needs to know about the pain of race relations and what it means. And instead, he picked a clip from Martin Luther King Jr.'s Selma speech, and then if you hear in the background, if you go on and listen to the next track, you can hear him like literally humming this almost gospel releasing hum to this, like, underneath this Martin Luther King, this very hopeful, like bright King quote that like we're marching on. I mean, it's like one of the most like Christian theological pieces that's so gorgeous, and what King, like, it just invites us to expand our hearts to this big, huge world where good is coming. You feel King's hope and the hope of the whole civil rights movement in it. So it was funny because I was like, hey, I want you to rap on this album. He's like, yeah, I want you to like find like the 3 things you need to like say to every white person. And he like paused right there and he was like, are there only 3, Dale? Really? There are only 3. And I was like, oh man, thank you for teaching me yet again of how much I don't know. And so the comeback to him to play this King quote. And then of course we had to write a letter and get permission to use the King Selma speech on there. So anyway, it was great. Yeah, man, that's white apathy.
Thanks for having that conversation. Let's move on here. All right. So this next one is The Burden That Buries Men.
The day of my first bike crash. Me all black-eyed, bruised, and needing stitches. He all beer-breathed and tall. Toughen up, he insisted. The day of the championship. I dribbled right, then left, bated breath, 2 seconds left, then shouts of joy when I scored the winning shot. But he didn't show and never called. Words like proud and well done, he never spoke. Words like I'm sorry, he never wrote. What I wanted from him were tools he didn't own. I promised myself I'd never be like my dad. I swore I wouldn't follow his steps. Live your life, bold, hard, proud, brazen and unflinching. Man up, don't be sorry. His hollow laugh echoed in my head. The burdens of a father and a son, the gravity of history, skin and bone shouldering the story. He died with his dried up commitments, left me with my root withering bitterness. I wear my promise over my heart like a medal. I whisper, I'm not like you, over his grave. but I have his skin and bones, and I couldn't change. Until today, me all tired from work, distant and indifferent, my son all teary-eyed and lanky. You forgot to pick me up, and I waited for hours, seared from his accusation, the realization, a painful truth. I wasn't there when he needed me. I'm terrified somehow I've become my dad. The burdens of a father and a son, the gravity of history, skin and bones, this cross on his shoulders. Me all trembling and eyes low. He a warm planet on this day, holding my burdened body in his orbit. A baptism of hot tears falling on my neck. The blessing of my son.
Did it again. Dude.
So that one was the most surprising to me because now I've been able to perform these poems like all over, like fortunate enough to go to some college campuses and all around. In that poem, I kind of have an intuitive sense of which ones I'm going to perform at a place. And this one kind of came up, and then every time I perform it, it causes a like real strong resonance with the people there. And so I've performed it more and more and more, and I've been surprised at how it resonated. So the unique part, I'm going to let you say whatever really matters to you, but this is the first time where I was like, I had a series of conversations with like friends that I really care about, and they had all told me through like a longer dialogue that I'll be like, my dad never apologized to me. And I was like, what? Like never? And the more I like started like connecting the dots, I wrote this poem, not necessarily, I love using first person because I think it is authentic, but this poem is written for every one of my friends who had a dad who never said sorry to them. So it's like channeling, I wanted to channel all these different stories into one narrative of like, what is wrong with that, you know, and in the hopes that it would change us to never be people, to never be dads who couldn't say I'm sorry, couldn't grow the capacity to love more than that. So that's what I was trying to do.
It's awesome. No, it's just, there's so much tension in it, you know?
That's good, yeah.
Like I don't know.
Well, why'd you pick it? Because of the tension, you thought?
Yeah, just because of my own story, and it speaks to me really deeply.
Yeah, that's good. Was there particular lines that like stood out that created that tension and spoke to you?
As I was sitting here reading off the book, that line that what I wanted from him were tools that he didn't own.
Yeah, that's definitely from my experience with my dad. I was like, maybe I'm asking him to do something he could never do or be, you know? The other thing I thought I wanted to, the story of we call it the parable of the lost son, or this parable of the loving father, you could say, the loving parent, is the way the son is the one who goes and squanders his life and does all these bad things, then comes back and is welcomed, the homecoming. And I wanted to like reverse that, because like if I think about our moment in history and I think about like my own relationship with my son, like in the story, the son is the one who hugged me enough to like break the cycle of the system that was at work, right?
Okay.
And so oftentimes the son for me became, I wanted to invert the parable of the prodigal son to be the parable of, seeing the son or the daughter as the pathway to the divine, the pathway to love and forgiveness. That there are sometimes our wounds grow so deep and they're so patterned behavior in the terms of like what we learned from our father, we pass on. And this pattern I've experienced from my son, sometimes such love, that love breaks that pattern. And I hope that hug of the son could break the pattern of the father. That's the only like illusion to hope, It could break us out of a sense of like, that love could make me humble enough to say, listen, I'm sorry. This is wrong. I can be better, So that's the burden that buries men.
I just feel like there's this tension, because it kind of starts out from that posture of like pointing the finger,
Yeah.
It's like that finger gets
right
back at you, and then right back at yourself, It's right in your own chest.
I think that's what makes great art, right? Because, and that's what were so good at pointing out, like social justice poems are so self-righteous. And I feel like you grow out of social justice poems. Like, even if you're like, yeah, like climate change is real and we need to get on board and do everything and stop using plastic, right? Truth, absolute truth of human life. However, for your poem to just ignorantly, it's uninteresting ultimately, because it's like, you're telling me what to do. The better poem, the better story would be like, what do I do when I really love plastic bottles of water? It's so convenient for me. Like, to tell the story of your own self, like, shit, I got to actually get a water bottle and keep track of it, and find find fountains that I can refill instead of like the $4.99 easy convenient, whatever. It's to make a story more complex, to implicate yourself in a story. And that's what I wanted to do with this, to implicate myself. And it's not just about like middle finger to my parents, right? It's this deeply engaging of like, because I have felt in my bones at my worst moments, like the worst behaviors of my mom and dad came out through me to my son and daughter. And I even shake a couple times like, whoa, DNA is powerful, right? Family patterns and behaviors are real. And so the poem wanted to like get at that just a little bit. And any good poem or story has to like implicate you, is what I think. I mean, anyway, It's boring, just to hear. It's so self-righteous,
And just hearing you talk about the experience with your son, and it's like that finger gets point back at you.
Yeah.
But it's not just a straight line, right? Because what happens is like that opens you up to the experience of your son.
Yeah, that's right.
So like,
that's right.
It's not a straight horizontal line. It's a circle.
That's right.
Anyways,
I agree. That's right.
It's a really beautiful depiction of how like all our experiences roll together and like just be receptive to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. That's awesome.
I love that poem.
Thank you. I'm so glad you love it.
So, what's next for you? You released on Wounds and Wonder a year ago?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's right. Yep. Well, I just like, I have to write these poems. It's just like, I am a better pastor, a better human, a better dad, a better partner when I write. And so for me, I just have to it's not about gaining fans. It's not about, I actually do want to create really cool poems, that really, really good poems that help you to think about the depth of the existence, that raise an important question. But I just have to like keep going. And so I was really burdened by, I was floored. And I don't know if you share this experience of when the Me Too movement started, and my Twitter feed and my Facebook feed and my Instagram, all these like confessions of like women who had experienced this. And I literally was like pretty brokenhearted over it, like in terms of like, really? And it just kept going and going and going. And I was like, we've got a major problem. And I was also reflecting on like my experiences of, it's a good segue between the burdens of bury men and this, of my experiences of like the fatherlessness that I felt, the lovelessness from men that I like have longed for, and felt like, wow, like those are, to your point of the line I wrote, like those are tools that this generation of men do not have, And so I started reading, like, what is this? And I read a wonderful book by Bell Hooks, The Will to Grow, Man, Masculinity, and the Will to Growth. And it was so, Bell Hooks is just incredible feminist scholar, African-American woman who, her writing is so brilliant and at the same time, like, such a beautiful literary style. And I read this book, and I read it again, and I read it again. And I rarely do that. Like, there are so many great books to read that, like, I get through it and I want to move on to, and my mind just is always like hopping to the next good idea. And this book, like, just, it does it for me. So wonderful. And she talks about patriarchy. And she talks about, like, our society being structured on the power of men. And Bell Hooks argues that one of the things that patriarchy strips from men is their ability, their capacity to love. So I wanted to write an album of poems specifically to men that inspired them, that helped them to break free of some of the stereotypes of what real masculinity means, to be more healthy in growing their capacity to love. So I wrote this set of poems and we set it to music, and I heard in my mind mandolins and saxophones and guitars. So I wanted a more like organic sort of folky feel. And so I had my friend Matthew Davis compose all the songs underneath it. And so I'm really pleased and really excited. The project is going to come out in the next week or two, and in time for Father's Day, so that you can literally, it'll come with a journal where I've etched this beautiful blessing. I'm calling the album Blessed is the Man. And what I am not saying is blessed is the angry, patriarchal, mean-spirited man. I'm saying blessed is the man who is loving and kind and humble and grows and continues to this journey of growth that we've been talking about. And so you get this journal which inspires men to journal their feelings, journal their thoughts, search, seek out what the internal, eternal within them, to seek out that how emotions have profound intelligence. And then the journal has a little zine with it that gives you all the lyrics to the poems and a download for free. And it's done. So I thought I'd show you one of the new tracks from it. And it's literally the title track called Blessed is the Man. So here you go.
It's the longest night of my life, the winter solstice of this year. I felt the scrape of strife, but I'm a hard man with no tears. My dreams are dusty and shallow, the river of imagination dried up. My fields unplanted and fallow, the heart of desire burned out. I've been careless and forgotten, liquid apathy I've been drinking. I'm miles from compassion. I've made this road I'm walking.
Blessed is the man, blessed is the man who fails and stumbles, who learns that love is without end, who is strong and humble, who feels and finds himself again. Please plant him near, please plant him near the river, just as the ancient poem foretold. Please plant him near the river and make peace within him grow.
I've suppressed my desire for affection, denial and withdrawal, my safe high tower. I've chased the noose of perfection and tasted the temptation of fisted power. I felt the kiss of betrayal, the empty presence of wounded men. I've buried grief to avoid what's painful. Raging anger fills me again and again. The ones I love the most are victims. My will to grow, a trembling amen. The words I'm sorry are difficult wisdom. Change doesn't come easy for hard men.
Blessed is the man, blessed is the man who fails and stumbles, who learns that love is without end, who is strong and humble, who feels and finds himself again. Please plant him near, please plant him near the river, as the ancient poem foretold. Please plant him near the river, and may peace within him grow.
It's time to pour the bottles out, drop all that hasn't served me well, to give up these confining doubts, to feel each hot tear that falls. Please plant me near the river, please plant me near the river, source of courage and devotion, where life begins and ends, where rising love breaks like an ocean. Bring me back to life again. Please plant me near the river. I want to feel alive again. But I'm a hard man with no tears.
Blessed is the man, blessed is the man who fails and stumbles, who learns that love is without end, who is strong and humble, who feels and finds himself again. Please plant him near, please plant him near the river, just as the ancient poem foretold. Please plant him near the river and make peace. Please plant him near the river and may peace within him grow.
I'm looking at your face right now like, what's he thinking?
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, thank you. You've heard a lot of poetry today. Thank you.
I sure have.
For listening.
And you showed me the image of the...
Yeah, and you can show it.
Show me the cover image while we were listening to it. That's a powerful image.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm really excited to see
Dude,
this project come out, and I'm excited to hear the whole thing.
Yeah.
Get my hands on a copy.
Thank you so much for being so kind to have me and for creating such thoughtful questions. And it was so much fun to talk to you this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks a lot for
I'm
coming.
tired, man. We covered a lot of ground.
I always get tired after these.
It was awesome. Thank you so much, man.
You bet.
There you have it. That is Dale Fredrickson and just some of his poetry. Isn't that awesome stuff? And like he just mentioned, that new project that he just released is now available. Make sure to check that out on his website, dalefredrickson.com. And if you want to get some of his poetry for free, check this out. I have a copy of his On Wounds and Wonders album and the companion book that goes with that I am giving away. All you got to do to be entered to win that is go and give the podcast a review on iTunes and then send a screenshot of your review to thegroundedpresence@gmail.com. Those details are also available in the show notes. Make sure to check out Dale's website and follow him on all the social medias. Links to those accounts are available in the show notes of this episode. So before I close it out here, I just wanted to leave you with one last poem. Now, we listened to Dale's poem, White Apathy, earlier in the episode, and Dale mentioned the next track on the album, that is The Cries We Cannot Hear, which, as he said earlier, is Martin Luther King Jr.'s Selma speech set to music with a little bit of vocalizing underneath it. And man, just the way that this appears on the album, I just wanted to share this with you because it just makes that White Apathy piece so much more beautiful and so much more powerful. So I'm going to share White Apathy with you again here, and at the end, make sure to keep listening because that will lead right into Martin Luther King Jr.'s Selma speech as it appears on Dale's album, On Wounds and Wonder. So here you go. Enjoy.
The news flickers, colors clash. An officer pulls the trigger. Another black life lost. In a blur of pixels, in a whir of missteps, I watch, dry eye. The recurrence deafening. Under red skies, apathetic, I sleep. Why is this suffering, this misery of race, harrowing to face? Middle passage leg irons, the lash of a leather whip on flesh, curses on buses and restaurants, skeletons rattling, clamoring, battling from unnamed graves. Power and pigmentation, a story forged by lies, racial classifications. I'm deaf to the sorrows of difference. A mother cries and the earth rumbles. A father sighs and the sky thunders. Ancestry of violence. And I can't hear. Callousness traced through my family history. Murder and ignorance pulsing through my white skin. Could I hear and feel if I powered off my screens, became powerless, and listened?
Today I want to tell the city of Selma. Tell them, Doctor. Today I want to say to the state of Alabama. Yes, sir. Today I want to say to the people of America and the nations of the world that we are not about to turn around. Yes, sir. We are on the move now. Yes, sir. Yes, we are on the move, and no wave of racism can stop us. Yes, sir. And the burning of our churches will not deter us. Yes, sir. The bombing of our homes will not dissuade us. Yes, sir. The beating and killing of our clergymen and young people will not divert us. Yes, sir. The wanton release of their known murderers will not discourage us. We're on the move now. Yes, sir. Like an idea whose time has come. Yes, sir. Not even the marching of mighty armies can halt us. Yes, sir. We are moving to the land of freedom. Yes, sir. I know you're asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will prejudice blind the visions of men? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, yes, sir, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed earth will rise again. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. Yes, sir. Because no lie can live forever. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. How long? Because you shall reap what you sow. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. How long? Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yes, that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. How long? Not long. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. How long? Not long. Because mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. of his terrible swift sword.
Yes, sir.
His truth is marching on.
Yes, sir.
He has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah.